We have some breaking Philadelphia Eagles news on this morning of August 29th. You're watching Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And unfortunately for Philadelphia, their depth has taken a hit going into Week 1 against the Green Bay Packers in Brazil. James Bradberry suffered a lower leg injury at practice yesterday, and he could miss up to 2 months. We're going to react to that. I have a lot of thoughts. We'll take a look at the Eagles depth chart, both at the cornerback position and at safety. That and a whole lot more coming your way. But first, I think we're going to get to 80,000 subscribers before Week 1. We have done tremendous work this week. Really appreciate all of the real ones who have hopped on board, joining the Eagles Now family by hitting that subscribe button. My goal, 80K subs before Week 1, and we are 1,000 away just a couple of days ago. Now, only 166 people away from that number. So if you want Eagles shows on a daily basis, year-round, with some really informative, insightful, thought-provoking coverage that involves you, hit that subscribe button. And speaking of 80K, it got the brain churning to when I was growing up in Westchester and I became a diehard Eagles fan, and watching Eagles games as a kid, a big reason why I wanted to get into the sports broadcasting industry. And my first Eagles jersey ever was an Irving Fryer jersey, the number 80. So once we get to 80,000 subs, we're going to honor Irving Fryer. And with that, I pop up this question, and I just want to see where people are at and what they have to share. What was your first Eagles jersey ever? Drop those throwbacks down in the comment section right now. Fascinated to see what you all come up with and the demographics of the YouTube channel here on Eagles Now. So Ian Rapoport breaking the news just moments ago on this Thursday morning that veteran defensive back James Bradberry suffered a lower leg injury during yesterday's practice. Sources tell him and Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network. And although surgery is not required, the injury involved a tendon, and recovery time for an injury of this nature and magnitude, approximately 6 to 8 weeks. So Bradberry going to miss a significant portion of the season. Rapoport with the follow-up tweet on X saying that Philly's secondary depth takes a hit with the season looming. That said, James Bradberry should be back with plenty of time for the second half of the season. And the depth issues at safety, something that we want to focus on for today's Eagles Now. And I know what you're thinking, right? James Bradberry sucks. The Philadelphia Eagles don't even need him. He shouldn't have been on this initial 53-man roster. He's washed. He can't tackle. And look, I've dogged James Bradberry here on the show because last year he was terrible. The lowest graded corner in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. Sometimes it looked as though after he got paid, he didn't want to play because he was scared to tackle. But he has gone about this positional switch in a professional manner. He admitted that he didn't play well at the cornerback spot. And for him to make this team, he had to try out safety. And I trust Vic Fangio's assessment of the player here, and he was very complimentary of James Bradberry. And the real news here, circling back to that initial point, this does hurt Philadelphia's depth, especially at safety. Now, what's interesting is that I went on the Eagles website because I wanted to see how they listed Bradberry. They still have him listed as a cornerback, but when releasing the initial 53, the Eagles didn't break up and separate cornerbacks and safeties. They just listed all of those players as defensive backs, and 11 made the initial 53 in total, including Bradberry. And throughout training camp and in the preseason, he had practiced and played almost exclusively at safety during camp. And this is why I think the Eagles kept Bradberry on the initial 53. First of all, the contract. Philadelphia would have eaten $4.3 million if they just outright cut him. It's a lot of money to swallow when he could have helped you with positional versatility and with your depth. And speaking of the depth issues, Sidney Brown is starting the year on PUP. So he has to miss at least the first 4 weeks of the season. That positional versatility is something that Howie Roseman really does value. Because Bradberry, in a pinch, ideally you don't have him out there, but in a pinch, he can play outside corner. He can play inside corner, and he can play safety. So he's a veteran who's looked at as a smart, heady, and of course an accomplished player who can play a couple of different positions in your secondary. There was also no trade market. There was some chatter that the Tennessee Titans were showing interest in Bradberry because their current defensive coordinator is Denard Wilson, who used to be the Eagles defensive backs coach, but Tennessee and a lot of other teams across the NFL do not view Bradberry as a corner any longer because he's lost some of that speed, and really, he lost it very quickly from 2022 to 2023, and here we are in 2024. But at the end of the day, Vic Fangio did applaud the switch, and Vic Fangio is not going to go out there and just compliment players for the sake of complimenting them, right? This is an old school football guy who, when he says something positive about a player, usually his actions back that up. For instance, he loved Thomas Booker and what he did throughout training camp and in the preseason. Thomas Booker made the 53. He said, Quinion Mitchell, we might have to have him on the field playing slot corner just to get our best corners on the field. Quinion Mitchell right now is going to start in the slot. And he said James Bradberry's done a hell of a job making the switch from corner to safety. But I will say during the preseason, I just didn't see it. What we did see last year was that precipitous drop-off. Bradberry goes from a second-team All-Pro in 2022 to last year, according to PFF, the NFL's lowest-rated corner. And the numbers really did just fall off of a cliff. In 2022, those numbers to the left side when he was an All-Pro. Overall, PFF grade of 74.1. That drops to 56.6. Coverage grade goes down from 80.2 to 54.7. Passer rating from 54.2 to 108.6, 3 picks to 1, and the coverage snaps actually went up in 2023. I know the defensive system wasn't ideal. You go from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. Eagles were trying to work with the patchwork secondary, and they were historically bad, so it didn't make Bradberry's job any easier, but the eye test tells you that he simply was not the same player. And while Fangio did compliment him, I think back to how he struggled against New England. Missing tackles in the open field, not taking the proper angle, and kind of setting the edge as the safety coming up into the box on that Drake-made quarterback keeper. He just looked lost out there, and Bradberry's never really been a great tackler, but it's just not ideal when your depth is taking hits this early in the season. Because, yeah, Tristan McCullum made this initial 53, more on him in a moment, but you're kind of counting on some unproven commodities in that Eagles secondary right now. You have Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers slated to start at outside cornerback for Philadelphia with Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean as your starting nickels. Avonte Maddox is a backup safety. He could play there, but if Mitchell were to struggle or get hurt, or the same could be said for Cooper DeJean, Bradberry could play there. Avonte Maddox could play there, but already you're kind of having to reshuffle the cards along the deck. I like Eli Ricks and Keely Ringo as backup outside corners, and then you go to the safety spot. You're just thin here. There's no other way to put it, and this is why I advocated for the Eagles to sign Justin Simmons time and time again, and he goes to Atlanta on a one-year, $8 million deal. Would have been affordable and smart for Philadelphia, but now you have Reed Blankenship, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Avonte Maddox, James Bradberry, and you can take James Bradberry off of the depth there for Philadelphia because he's going to be out until about the midway portion of the season. And I like the way that Tristan McCullum played throughout training camp and in the preseason. He plays the game the right way. Speed, physicality, no fear. But again, what's that buzzword? Unproven commodity, right? And Bradberry's unproven at the safety spot, but you can at least trust a veteran back there to not totally flop, right? And then on the Eagles practice squad, Philadelphia yesterday, after their initial roster cuts, bringing back Andre Sam to the practice squad and the taxi squad. And I like the way that he played in a short sample size throughout preseason and in the training camp sessions, but he's also a little bit of a smaller and slower player, 5'10", a $194, and at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, he ran a 4.59 40-yard dash. And at that safety spot, I do believe sometimes that speed with the range is going to be important. So does this injury concern you to James Bradberry? Y for yes, N for no. Share your thoughts with us down in the comment section. A programming reminder, Eagles Now Live, taking off today, Thursday, August 29th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. Be sure to hit that sub button, turn on those notifications by hitting that bell icon. Therefore, when we push out a show like this, or when we do go live for either a live show or a watch party, you'll be notified and you can join the largest independently run Eagles channel right here on YouTube. And let's throw these out there once again. If you want a Real John shirt, they're available. Kelly Green, black, chatsports.com/RealJohn. We'll put that link down below in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's Eagles Now. We'll see you in a few hours. Thanks for watching. Go Birds.